Hi, welcome to my primary Pdhpe discussion podcast. Many people have mixed feelings about both learning and teaching Pdhpe. A lot of people just think that Pdhpe isn't an important subject. For K to 6 students, Pdhpe is an extremely valuable curriculum area, and not just because it helps us teachers drain some energy from our students for our sanity, but because it is so beneficial to students to assist them with both their physical health and their well-being and understanding of living a healthy and good life. The Pdhpe K-10 syllabus rationale from 2018 outlines that Pdhpe provides students with the opportunity to develop resilience and connectedness, learn to interact respectfully with others, develop self-management, interpersonal and movement skills, which all helps them become empowered, self-confident and socially responsible citizens. The objectives of Pdhpe are to allow students to demonstrate an understanding of movement skills that ultimately promote confidence and creativity in a variety of physical activity contexts, and an understanding of strategies that promote a sense of personal identity and build resilience and respectful relationships. The game sense approach is an approach to teaching physical education that has become prominent within New South Wales primary schools. Like Curry and Mooney in 2014, highlight that the game sense approach focuses on locating learning within modified games to give it meaning and relevance to the full game or sport and to develop skill at the same time as understanding. In other words, the game sense approach focuses on playing a game to develop a student's learning of a skill in a specific sport rather than just giving students a step-by-step instruction on how they should be performing the skill. As a teacher, there is no better feeling than when you run a lesson and you can clearly see that every student is involved and having fun, but then you're on cloud nine when you ask them a question to see what they took from the lesson and they all put their hands up and they're able to show that they really took on the information and skills present in that lesson. By using the game sense approach, you can get all students involved. This is proved by Light 2012, as he highlights that students can all have fun at the same time, and at the same time you can see them developing their movement skills without them even realizing it. Through personal experience, I honestly agree with this, and I believe that there is no better way to teach a child than to use games and activities that will be fun and engaging. Your students learn so much through an approach like this, and not just on their movement skill, but depending on the game, they also develop their sportsmanship, communication, and creativity all at the same time. The game sense approach is beneficial for all stages, but even more so for early stage 1 and stage 1 students, as they will be more engaged in playing a game rather than just listening to instructions about movement. Stage 1 students should be focusing on movement skills and performance outcomes from the 2018 Pdhpe syllabus provided by NESA. PD1-5 outlines that students can propose a range of alternatives to solve movement challenges through participation in a range of activities. By playing a game with students that focuses on a skill or movement, this allows for them to solve their challenges as they play. During our Week 2 tutorial, we focus on intercultural understanding and how that links with Pdhpe on both the theoretical side and the practical side. I knew that Pdhpe has cross-curricular links with many other subjects, but I guess I hadn't really thought about it until this class, especially when it came to Pdhpe and how it links with intercultural understanding. We spoke about sport and how you can implement intercultural understanding by learning different games from different cultures. I challenged this further and thought about how we can implement intercultural understanding in the Pdhpe part of lessons, which brought us to discussing healthy eating habits and cultural foods, and in terms of well-being and families, how different families have different beliefs based on their cultural background. Doing this unit, after having already completed my first professional experience, I noticed that I completed a lot of this content with my Year 1-2 class with the help of my mentor teacher. I was quite literally making these links without even realizing how much content I was covering. It honestly just came to me naturally. My mentor teacher even mentioned it on my last day. She was so shocked with how I was able to make these links flow so easily within my lessons, and the students absolutely loved it. Antila Siljanaki and Rowe in 2018 highlighted the copious amounts of literature that exist for both inter and multicultural education, but the extreme lack of research on the role of the body, non-verbal communication, and physical activity and the arts in fostering interculturality. During our tutorial, I was able to realize what my mentor teacher meant when she said that my links to other topics were done so seamlessly in my lessons, as I noticed just how much I noted on intercultural understanding within physical education during the class. I agreed with every point made in the class, and I was able to help Dilara next to me, who struggled to find more ways of implementing intercultural understanding in a PDH lesson. It's easy to think about different sports from other cultures, but when asked about healthy living and well-being, some people really turn up short on how interculturality links to this for some people. This part of the tutorial really highlighted a lot of things that I knew but didn't realise was beneficial to my own development as a future teacher. During the practical tutorial in week 5, we got to participate in the AFL in schools program. Coming from someone who's not a big sports fan unless I'm swimming or someone hands me a tennis racket, yes, typical Serb thing, I was not keen on playing or participating in AFL activities at all. In fact, if it weren't for the fact that I already missed a class, I probably would have not attended both sessions. However, I went, and I have to say, those are probably my 2 favourite classes. Hookie from the AFL team really brought to my attention how even the little things can stimulate student involvement. I remember him saying, "You all came onto the field and I told you guys to pick up a ball and hold it. And now that I've showed you the different types of sizes and shapes they come in, you're all still holding a ball and a lot of you are fidgeting with them. But I would rather that you hold the ball and fidget with it as you listen, because while you do that, you're also getting used to the feel of the ball, which is really important." I reflected on that straight away, and as I never thought about it. A lot of the time you tend to tell students to put the ball down until they get to practice with it because you think that they'll pay more attention to you if they aren't fidgeting with anything. But by letting them hold on to it, they feel more included and they want to participate in the lesson even more. Hooker even referred to how children feel after the lesson, even if they did not play a big part in the game. They were able to hold the ball, feel it, and then they'll go home to their parents and tell them how they played with a football that day, and that means so much to a child. I honestly understood exactly what he meant because I was standing there holding the ball, and even at this age, I felt comfortable enough to hold the ball and try to learn more skills to do with AFL, compared to when I first walked onto the field dreading the next hour. In week 6, the second practical lesson with the AFL and schools team, we were able to not only get involved in learning an AFL skill, but we also had the opportunity of teaching an AFL activity in groups to the rest of our peers. During this time, I learned about how important it is to try and teach a skill that is engaging. Rather than just giving step-by-step instructions on how to pass a football to someone, Hookie mentioned how it is easier to get a child to understand when you link the instructions to something fun. For example, holding the football, you look for the shoelaces and the hole in the middle. Then you tell the students that in the hole there is treasure. And straight away you have all kids trying to look over the ball pretending that there's treasure in there. Telling the students to pretend the ball is ice cream and the hand that hits the ball as an ice cream cone also helps in how you teach them to pass the ball in the correct way. By making instructions engaging, it helps the lesson flow so much better. I realized that by making things like this so fun for students, I would also make my own life easier, as explaining something wouldn't be difficult. It would give more time for students to get into practicing the skill for longer. The AFL and schools team really helps really stand by allowing all students to have a go and further help students in develop their movement skills. And honestly, coming from someone who, unless I have a tennis racket in my hand, has no experience or coordination with a ball, anyone can give it a go with the correct instruction and teaching strategy. This links to a game-based approach as we linked teaching a skill in AFL to playing a game. To teach that skill, as Webb, Pearson and Forrest highlight, that fun and enjoyable lessons result to an inclusive environment and more learning. I was able to see this in our practical lesson as I improved on my own skills with an AFL ball, while I played and participated in the games and activities led by all the other groups, and I honestly enjoyed it heaps. In our Week 7 tutorial, we really focused on the different teaching strategies that could be used in PDHPE lessons. We looked at the general lesson structure and the different teaching and learning strategies within PDH lessons. Something that really got me thinking was the general rules for brainstorming. You never really think too deeply about brainstorming. It's that thing that you kind of just ask students general questions about a topic or a lesson, and they're about a lesson that they're about to participate in, and they just raise their hands and answer. What I realised in this tutorial, though, was that you still had to have some general rules that allowed for all students to feel comfortable and included, even if it's just brainstorming. Rules as simple as accept all ideas without criticism, write down as many ideas as possible rather than focusing on the quality, don't discuss ideas until after the brainstorm, and keep brainstorming short and sweet. With PDH, it's important to remember that sometimes you cover topics that are sensitive to some kids, and you don't want to make those kids feel uncomfortable or unable to speak up. These rules for something as simple as brainstorming allows you to show that every student voice matters. and that they are in an environment where they can speak openly to you without any judgment. Florian and Black Hawkins in 2011 highlighted that teachers tend to focus on students who are always actively involved in lessons, rather than trying to get all students involved, and once those students have answered their questions, they feel they have completed the activity. Having rules like accepting all students' answers in a brainstorm allows for all students to be able to have a voice and feel included, which makes them feel more comfortable in an environment. And this is so important when teaching lessons that may be sensitive to some students. This part of the tutorial really made me think and reflect on my own experiences of teaching and whether I made my students feel like they were included. This tutorial made me realize that it's as simple as setting yourself some ground rules to make sure that you're being inclusive of all students. It's not just about the body of your lesson and getting students to complete activities for you to mark. Every part of your lesson matters, and it's important to make sure that you create an environment that all students feel confident to speak in. Overall, I have to say, when I used to think about PDHPE, I was not a big fan of the subject, but throughout this unit, I've come to realize that PDHPE would actually probably be one of my favourite subjects to teach. Having already been in a school environment teaching a class, it's safe to say I love teaching and I'm always looking at ways for me to improve as a teacher. My participation throughout this unit this semester has allowed for me to realise that PDHPE isn't some big scary subject that I'm going to hate teaching. It's actually so rich in content, and there is so many ways that you can make teaching PDHPE fun for all students of all ages. I learned that even the little things matter, such as brainstorming, and even allowing students to hold a ball while listening to the teacher. These things are beneficial for students as they learn. It instills confidence within them and makes them feel safe and included all the time. The unit this semester really allowed for us to unpack the PDHP syllabus, learn how to navigate our way through it and understand what everything means in it. We studied the cross-curricular links to PDHPE so that you can link every other subject to it in some way. And it's allowed for me to personally to really understand the benefits of linking other KLAs to PDHPE. Having already completed my first prac, I noticed that I was already making those cross-curricular links within my lessons, and now I have even more ideas on what other links I can make. I cannot wait to implement that. I wouldn't say that I was stressed about having to teach PDHP before undertaking this unit, but I would also be lying if I said I was fully confident in my abilities. I think the most beneficial thing for me was seeing that PDHPE is just as important as any other subject, and that there is so much that you can do within PDHPE that kids will love. After studying this unit, I'm excited to take everything I have learnt and teach these things to my own class.